Review of Commissioner Compliance with Municipal Code Chapter 2.17, Recommendations in May 2023 Fact-Finding Report and Related Governance Issues.
Thank you, Mayor. May I issue a recusal statement, please? Thank you.
I'm sorry?
I would like to make a statement before I recuse. Thank you.
It's your discretion, Mayor.
If I'm
Sure.
allowed to
Okay.
make the statement, or?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Or if it's your pleasure, I can simply say I recuse and leave if you'd rather not hear the statement.
It'd be appropriate for you to state the basis for your recusal, but beyond that, it's at the mayor's discretion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that
Could you
works.
say the basis why you want to be recused?
Okay, I'll try to abbreviate this. As with the situation of May 9th of this year, the council majority has continued to direct the city attorney to scrutinize Councilmember Chow and myself, and no other members of the council or staff, for any municipal code violations which they could possibly bring to the district attorney. I have already been advised that I would need my own legal representation, underscoring the fact that the city attorney is working at the behest of the council majority, because this item contemplates both municipal code violations and censure, which the city attorney has offered no due process for the evaluation of yet. I would have a foreseeable financial impact. In order to hire my own legal counsel under these conditions, I must recuse myself. Thank you.
Councilmember, City Attorney Jensen, can I ask, does Councilmember Moore need to recuse herself, or is it just because she feels that she needs to recuse herself?
She independently made the decision to recuse herself.
Okay, all right. We'll move on to number 7, review of Councilmember compliance with Municipal Code Chapter 2.17. Recommendations in May 2023 Fact-Finding Report and Related Governance Issues. And I believe we have a staff report from Attorney Jensen.
We do. Thank you, Mayor. Let me share my screen. Waiting for that to come up. I'm not seeing that come across on the monitor.
So, City Attorney Jensen, were you requesting that the video show the presentation, share the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay. I can share my screen. I don't think they were expecting to share. This is the Compliance Progress Report. Is that the title?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, actually, I do see it up.
Is that okay? Great.
Okay. So I do see screen sharing, but I don't. Yeah, it's on the screen now.
Right. Now I just need to get it in presentation mode. There we go. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Mayor, members of council, I'm here today. We also have Linda Dobby here at the staff table. I will be giving a brief presentation, and both of us will be available to answer questions after the presentation. So we're here, as indicated in the title of the agenda item, to monitor progress towards compliance with the findings and recommendations in the May 2023 report prepared by Ms. Dobby, and that again was a follow-up on what was the December 22 grand jury report. As you recall, the grand jury report had 3 findings that were directed at council member conduct and council staff relations. The grand jury report first identified a cultural distrust between the city council members and city staff. Second, it noted that culture of distrust negatively impacted city operations, including the loss of skilled and experienced personnel. And third, the grand jury report noted the changes in the city's ethics policies over the past few years and recommended strengthening the city's current ethics policy. As a result of the findings of the grand jury report, the city attorney's office conducted an investigation of council member conduct and other concerns identified in the report consistent with council direction. Ms. Dobby was retained to conduct that investigation. Her investigation largely confirmed the findings of the grand jury report. It noted that council members failed to comply with Municipal Code Chapter 2.17, which sets forth the council staff relation under the council manager form of government. It also noted that there was interference with the city manager's exclusive authority to hire, fire, and discipline subordinate employees. As part of the consideration of Ms. Dobby's original report, the city attorney's office was directed to return to council in 4 months with a report on progress towards compliance with the municipal code, which is why we're here this evening. You also just heard the July 2023 Enterprise Leadership Assessment prepared by our internal auditor, Moss Adams, summarized and discussed. That Enterprise Leadership Assessment grew out of a December 2022 report, an Enterprise Risk Assessment, which expressed concerns about the length of the city council meetings, about the potential role confusion related to council members directing operational matters, and also noted council members' focus on operational matters at the expense of long-term strategic goals. The Enterprise Leadership Assessment that you heard earlier today reports progress towards implementing the recommendations in the grand jury report and Ms. Dobby's May 2023 fact-finding report. Those include the development and implementation of the council procedures manual and improved practices for council staff communication, such as the expanded use of one-on-one meetings. However, the assessment also notes areas of continuing concern, including concerns about the efficiency and effectiveness of council meetings and the effectiveness of the city's public participation processes. So all of the reports that council has received over the past year or so tend to point to the same conclusions. They show that there has been a history of a pervasive lack of trust between council members and city staff. They note that council members do not seem to consistently understand their role within the council management form of government, and they point to concerns about the effectiveness of city council as a policy and decision-making body. The purpose of this progress report is to monitor progress towards compliance with those goals and compliance with the municipal code as indicated in the May 2023 report. This report will focus on 4 of the recommendations in the May 2023 fact-finding report. The recommendation that council members avoid governance by email, providing direction to staff outside of notice meetings through email, council and staff aim to improve council staff relations, that the council in making its decisions gives proper weight to professional advice of city staff and other professionals, and that the city manager and her staff, as well as the city attorney, work towards addressing council members' need for information to make informed decisions as part of their job. So the first recommendation in full is that council members should avoid governance by email and should rely on their one-on-one meetings with the city manager to avoid adverse impacts to city operations and to facilitate communication and trust between the city manager and city staff. As noted in your staff report, Ms. Dobby's follow-up investigation has found significant improvement towards achieving this goal. The number of emails per week to the city manager from council members has decreased from about 50 to 70 per week prior to May 1st to approximately 25 to 30 per week, with council member Moore and Chow significantly decreasing their emails to the city manager. Staff interviewees also generally noted a decrease in accusatory or caustic emails from council members and improvements in their working environment flowing from greater professionalism among the council members. Recommendation Number 2 is council members should attempt to improve the contentious relationship that certain members have had with city staff and should communicate any concerns about staff to the city manager, who is accountable to the city council for her staff's performance. And again, we see significant improvement here since May. Interviewed staff noted an improvement in the tone of emails received from council members, and based on observations of recent city council meetings, civility among council members and among council member and staff during meetings is improving. There are a few instances of backsliding that were reported, but overall the level of civility has notably increased. Recommendation number 3, council members should rely on the advice of and give weight to the recommendations of the executive management staff and other professionals in considering items that come before the city council. And here, once again, we definitely see significant improvement towards meeting this goal. Council members have consistently taken advantage of preparation sessions regarding major agenda items such as the budget and the housing element, and have generally used those sessions as an opportunity to engage constructively with professional staff and obtain information to help them make decisions. There were reports amongst interviewed staff of some lingering distrust and at times disagreement about the role of council members within the council manager form of government. And this is sometimes reflected, for example, in council members' reliance on their own research or non-expert opinion as opposed to professional advice. But again, overall, the message here is significant improvement and progress and effort. And the final recommendation that was numbered as recommendation 7 in Ms. Dobby's report is the city manager should explore ways to resolve council member needs for information given limited staff resources, e.g. one-on-one meetings. And here, we do note substantial progress towards meeting this goal, but concerns remain about council member city manager communications. City Manager Wu has offered council members with multiple opportunities to inquire information regarding pending agenda matters through one-on-one meetings or through larger meetings with city staff on major agenda items. Also, the informational calendar adopted as part of the City Council Procedures Manual has provided a new avenue for council and members of the public to obtain information about city activities that do not require council action and are often operational in nature. There has been an unwillingness to participate in one-on-one meetings on the part of Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Chow has expressed willingness to participate in these meetings, but her participation has been uneven. Should note that both have consistently participated in subject matter specific briefings regarding major agenda items. However, the effectiveness of the city manager and her staff in providing professional advice to all council members will continue to be limited if some council members do not participate in one-on-one meetings. Based on this observed progress in addressing concerns identified in the May 2023 fact-finding report, there's certainly progress, even if it is at places uneven and imperfect. The city attorney's office is recommending restoring Councilmember Moore and Chow's committee assignments. Other recommendations that grow out of the May 2023 report and the follow-up investigation include developing a revised ethics policy, which is underway, continuing to provide training on the Brown Act to council members, and to provide training on Rosenberg's Rules of Order. We would also emphasize that all council members are strongly encouraged to attend one-on-one meetings with the city manager and/or city attorney. The significant progress that has noted in the staff report in the presentation I don't think should be read to minimize some of the ongoing governance issues that the city continues to face. There continues to be a difficulty understanding the distinction between operational and policy issues. It's improving, but it's still there. There are ongoing concerns about the efficiency and effectiveness of council meetings that were continue to be expressed by our internal auditor. And there also, as noted in the internal audit report, The overall public engagement in the government process, with the exception of a handful of issues, is limited and not necessarily effective. With limited exceptions, city council meetings are poorly attended and dominated by a relatively small number of residents. As a result, as noted in the enterprise leadership assessment, council members may have an over-reliance on anecdotal evidence and/or public comment that may not be representative of the wider community perspective. The over-reliance of the opinions of a small number of highly engaged residents has the potential to systematically bias decision-making and lead to suboptimal decisions in the city. These issues remain concerning despite the progress in implementing the recommendations of the fact-finding report and the procedural changes made through the adoption of the procedures manual. I'll close with some potential policy responses to the concerns identified. One would be to update the council procedures manual, which is on the agenda tonight. So we will certainly be considering that. The second would be additional council trainings or workshops to address the concerns identified in the grand jury report, the May 23 report, and the enterprise leadership assessment. And the third, again noted in Moss Adams' recommendation, would be to improve community engagement practices, and as characterized by Moss Adams, to set clearer expectations for the intended scope of community engagement at the start of city initiatives and incorporate more consistent and sophisticated community engagement concepts than those that have been employed by the city to date. Initiatives requiring a commitment of significant staff time or other resources would be incorporated into the city manager's recommendations for future city work programs, unless, of course, council decided to reprioritize items in this year's work program. So, just to conclude, the recommended action is to adopt the recommendations set forth in the progress report, and also to consider further policy responses to address ongoing governance issues. With that, both Ms. Dobby and I are available for questions.
Thank you, City Attorney Jensen. I'm open now for questions by council. Councilmember Chow?
A question.
Minutes, please.
So just want to clarify, did the city attorney give council member more advice to seek her own legal counsel?
No.
You did not mention that to her? I thought you did.
I believe we had a discussion where it came up, but I don't give legal advice to individual council members.
I believe city manager also indicated to her she should seek her own legal counsel. That's my understanding. I think maybe some of your words were taken as such. That's why she feels she is at risk. I want to clarify that. And then the civil grand jury report heavily leaned on undisclosed anonymous interviews, a practice that has significant shortcomings by allowing numerous inaccuracies to be included without any cross-examination or corroboration evidence. In my own interview with the civil grand jury, I diligently raised concerns and provided materials via email correspondence. However, it is disheartening to note that my inputs were selectively excluded from their final report. Consequently, it is evident that the report lacks the balanced and factual representation that is essential for a comprehensive understanding of the situation. The DOP report, despite its label as fact-finding report, conspicuously lacks any substantiated facts or references to support its claims. The Santa Clara County Deputy District Attorney, Mr. John Chase of the Public Integration Unit, agreed that there is no evidence of any municipal code violation. Instead, the DOP report contains a compilation of biased, anonymous opinions put forth by Ms. DOP, devoid of any accompanying transcripts for cross-examination and verification.
Councilmember Chow, is there a question?
I have a statement to read.
We have 5 minutes for discussion statement. See, right now it's for question. Do you have any questions?
Okay, I'll read that later then.
Okay, thank you. So I do have a couple questions. Number 3, the recommendation number 3, can you put it on the screen?
I will try.
Oh, sorry. It's about professional advice, to accept professional advice from professionals. I feel that we still have a big discrepancy on that. The grand jury report was not considered a professional document. Ms. Linda Dobby's report is not considered a professional document from certain council members, so I'm not so sure how this item has made any progress. That's my first question. I feel that this hasn't made any progress. The second one is for,
Is this through the mayor, is this the right recommendation that we have on the screen, the one you were referring to?
yes, give appropriate weight to professional advice of executive management team and
This
other
question-
professionals. Yes,
excuse
my
me.
question is, has this been really make significant improvement?
I do think we've noted some improvement. I think it is so. One thing that was noted in the staff report in the presentation is, I think the active and constructive participation of all council members in briefings around topics like the housing element and the budget. And then council addressed those issues quite successfully when we got to the meeting. I would also say that the overall tone of communications with all council members has been notably more respectful, and that I think improves communication and allows staff to be more free with giving their professional advice with council members. So. Of course, we could have more room for improvement, and council members, I think, have different views on the weight to give professional advice versus other sources of information, and that's I think sort of normal and understandable. But I do think that based on Ms. Dobby's follow-up investigation, there's observable improvement, and I think certainly an effort made in that direction by council members Moore and Chow, and so that's the basis for the finding in the report.
Okay, thank you. Another question I want to ask is for City Manager Wu. Why is it, if I'm not hearing or incorrectly, that you have one-on-one meetings with 5 of us, but there are some lacking one-on-one meetings with Councilmember Chow and Councilmember Moore? Have you made every effort to accommodate their time and their desire of when they could meet? Because I get so much from one-on-one, so I think that's really important. My question is, have you made every effort to make sure you accommodate council members' workload, work time, and
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Wei, for that question. So I do meet with each of the council members on a weekly one-on-one, and I allotted 1 hour each week, understanding that Councilmember Fruin and Councilmember Chow has a full-time job. So I do my best to accommodate everyone's schedule. I have not had a chance to meet with Councilmember Moore since February. I've had consistent meetings with Councilmember Chow probably up until June or July of this year, understanding that Councilmember Chow possibly had a workload issue. So the dialogue between me and Councilmember Chow has significantly reduced. But I have emails and a follow-up conversation trying to accommodate Councilmember Chow's schedule.
Did I hear correctly that you have not had one-on-one with Councilmember Moore since February?
That is correct.
This is September.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Moore has not stated reason why she doesn't want to have time or one-on-one with you?
Largely, this is the same reason that she stated in her statement earlier.
Okay, all right, understand. Thank you. Any other questions from the council? If not, Councilmember Foon, your hands is there, but.
Yeah, I was just hoping to maybe get some clarification on part of recommendation 2. There is text toward the bottom that seems to be at odds with the rest of the recommendation, and I just want to get some clarity on it. I'll just read it in full. It says, that said, interviewed staff noted several instances in recent months where Councilmember Moore's conduct in particular fell below standards for civility and consequently undermined efforts to build a constructive relationship with the city manager and her staff. It should be noted that Councilmember Moore apologized to staff on at least one of these instances after jumping to conclusions based on incomplete information. In addition, Councilmember Moore's refusal to participate in one-on-one meetings with the city manager and or city attorney is a serious hindrance to efforts to build an effective working relationship among council-appointed staff and all council members. This first section about conduct falling below standards of civility seems at odds with the rest of the text here involving how Councilmember Moore has interacted with staff. Can you elaborate on what precisely is meant here?
So I think that there is an overall trajectory of improvement in tone and as far as being less accusatory, less hostile, less argumentative, and then, you know, at least in certain settings, open to constructive exchange of information. That's not to say that you know, the behavior is perfect. I mean, I don't think any of us would want to be held to a standard of being perfect. And so I think it was important to note that you know, that it's that you know, of course, people are going to fall below that standard of perfection sometimes, but the conclusion is based on an overall trend towards improvement and sort of, I think, based on the review of the facts, an apparent effort of improvement. But it's noted, the conduct you mentioned is noted in the staff report because it would be inappropriate to give, you know, just to look at everything through rose-colored glasses and say that there are no remaining problems.
Okay, Councilmember Chow, your light is on. About 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, so my question is along the same line. Have we gotten any community feedback about the council members' performance and the staff relationship? Because I feel like the staff report seems to be a collection of staff opinions, but I have heard from community members they sensed a sense of hostility, even from staff towards community members in these past few months. And this kind of hostility wasn't there last year, wasn't there the year before, but there is this hostility towards council members and community members. So have those input been collected as to be considered together?
I think those inputs would be outside the scope of the report that council directed Ms. Dobby to prepare.
Okay.
Sorry, follow up. So the Ms. Dobby's report also did not interview any community members and only interviewed the staff members. So this just follows along that.
I'll let Ms. Dobby speak to her methodology if she may.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Am I on? Okay. Technically challenged I am. Can't hear you. Okay. Technically challenged I am. Okay. How's that? We got it? Okay. Good. I was, Chris, the city attorney had called me and wanted to follow up as per your direction as of May 9th. So what I did was I made a list and I followed up with some of the people that I originally interviewed to find out how things were going from their perspective, because the focus, again, of my initial report was to verify some of the findings in the grand jury report, as well as were there any additional municipal code findings that we needed to look at. So that's kind of where we were. So what I did was I interviewed, I think 7 or 8 people, and I followed them up with the similar kinds of questions, similar kinds of issues that had been raised with respect to the 4 recommendations. And I can tell you, the other thing I did was I watched all of your council meetings. I also watched one of your public engagement with the budget, and I would really like one of those Budget and Bite t-shirts. Love it, love it, love it. Best thing you can do when you've got fiscal challenges. I can tell you that not only staff, when I interviewed them, 180 degrees, just felt better about things. The management team is working. You're acting respectful toward them. They feel good about that. That gives them a little bit of confidence so that they feel that they can really step up, and not only they are very professional, but also, present everything to you in a very, very professional way. I watched, the thing I was really impressed, and trust me, I've been around the block watching lots of council people, from day one of my career. And one of the things that I really was impressed with was the use of PowerPoint, not only for your housing authority, but that really helps, and is probably one of the most effective things that you can do to get the public information there. Very, very good job on that. So, yeah, when I watched it and all of a sudden you passed the budget, I thought, wow, okay, because I was betting to myself that, not going to happen. Yeah, they did. Housing element, absolutely, very impressed. And quite frankly, this was a different council than I had originally viewed. You're respectful toward each other. You ask questions. There are some issues with that substitute versus the alternative motion kind of thing, but that takes practice. So yeah, so that was my methodology, and that's how I came up with the recommendations, and sent them in. Obviously they're recommendations, but sent them in to your city attorney.
Thank you, Ms. Dobby. Do we have any more questions? If not, I'm going to open up for public comment, please.
Yes, Mayor, we have 6 speaker cards in Community Hall, and I see 4 hands raised on Zoom. So we'll start with Jennifer Griffin, followed by Brooke Ezett, followed by Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, City Council. I think Ms. Dobby did an excellent job in the report. Chris did an excellent job. We are all adults. We have all worked professionally in different locations. This is where we are. I'm going to say right now, we need to move on. There are a lot of other critical, pressing, dangerous things that are going on in our state. People are trying to take away our local control. I don't know if you all understand the stress load that the public has been under from the last year due to the housing element, the housing bills, not knowing about the trustee drama going on with Fremont Unified High School District. That happened in March. I did not hear a word uttered anywhere about it until I received a postcard in the mail from Fremont Unified 2 weeks ago. I immediately went to Homestead. My husband went to Monte Vista. Both of my parents went to the old Mountain View High School. My grandmother went to Willow Glen, and my grandfather went to Campbell High School. I know our high school districts. There was not a word said. I think that there has been too much time spent, and I'm going to say this respectfully, working on things that were of the moment 3 to 5 months ago. I've worked at 3 startup companies, all right? 40 people, 5 women. Now you can understand the stress load I was under at a tech company as a female programmer in 1980 and 1990. I know what the stress load is. You have to perform. You aren't there unless you're good at what you do. And at 2 a.m. in the morning, you have computer systems crashing, and you are responsible for bringing them back up again because the entire satellite department at Laurel is ready to go in the morning. That is stress load, okay? You all have been there. We're in an engineering environment, we have tech people, etc. I say again, it is time to move on. I went to staff meetings regularly run by our engineering department every Wednesday, and I was of the IT team. It is time to move on, and I say this kindly. I think that very important topics, and I commend you for talking about SB 423 and the CAST bill, but we need to move on and deal with the real world. Thank you.
Next, we have Brooke Ezett, followed by Peggy Griffin, followed by Luis Sadati. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you. Just for the record, I wasn't given a cue card by an AstroTurf group. I'm fully capable of putting my own foot in my mouth. On May 9th, this council created a hostile work environment for some of its members, made a spectacle of yourselves, made a spectacle of the city, and deprived the city of its strongest advocates. There was also a settlement mentioned during this meeting, and I went back and I reviewed it, and what was stated wasn't quite accurate. So I would like to enter a copy of the settlement letter and the demand letter into the record so people can review it and make their own draw their own conclusions. Now, 700 people that are not affiliated with the Boogeyman Better Cupertino signed a petition regarding council members Moore and Chow because people feel that they've been disenfranchised by your actions. You need to do your jobs and not involve yourself in petty politics. We really don't care if you like each other. We do care if the city workers are treated fairly. We do care that the streets are clean and that people are housed. We don't care if you like each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. And next we have Peggy Griffin, followed by Luis Sadati, followed by Ajian Lee. Welcome, Peggy.
Sorry. Good evening, council and staff. I support restoring Councilmember Chow's and Moore's committee assignments and stopping the ongoing investigation by the city attorney's office. Continued monitoring and investigating will hinder any hope of building teamwork. And our city needs all 5 council members working together, not after the next election. I'm asking the majority of 3 to take the first step in showing you want a functional council. Take the first step and show you want to work together. A petition was started just yesterday, and within 24 hours, I think the count is over 700. It's grassroots. It's not a selected few or random. It was just somebody started it and it grew. People are upset. City Attorney Jensen's report attacks the public for commenting, for attending regularly, for participating, yet I believe attendance has continued to grow out of frustration. I support restoring Councilmember Chow's and Moore's committee assignments, ending the investigation by the city attorney and who he hires, allowing him to return to work. And for the entire council, detailed training on Rosenberg's Rules of Order and the Brown Act. We want all 5 council members representing us. That's why we elected you. Please stop this.
Thank you, Peggy. Next we have Luis Sadati, followed by Ajian Lee, followed by Lisa Warren. Welcome, Luis.
Hello. I am Luis Sadati, a Cupertino resident for 38 years. I appreciate and I want to thank the City Council, the City Manager, City Attorney, and City staff for the marked improvements since May of this year. on the efficiency of the council meetings, the increased civility and focus on agenda items during city council meetings, and the decreased number of excess emails from Councilmember Moore and Chow. The staff report written by City Attorney Chris Jensen noted, in quote, in particular, emails from Councilmember Chow were almost uniformly polite and respectful. Kudos to her. He, however, noted several instances where Councilmember Chow's conduct in particular, and these are direct quotes, fell below standards for civility and consequently undermined efforts to build a constructive relationship with the city manager and her staff. In addition, Councilmember Moore's refusal to participate in one-to-one meetings with the city manager and or city attorney is a serious hindrance to efforts to building an effective working relationship among council-appointed staff and all council members. End of quote of the city attorney's report. I'm respectfully asking the city council, the city manager, and the city attorney to be mindful of the distinctions in response between council members Moore and Chow and apply enforcement actions with these distinctions in mind. It is particularly disturbing to me that a council member could refuse to meet one-on-one with the city manager. The council members are elected to Cupertino's council member city manager form of governance. The previous problems cited by the grand jury and independent investigator included council members Moore and Chow's inappropriately going directly to staff rather than the city manager. The refusal of council member Moore to meet one-on-one with the city manager is glaring in his adamant continued non-compliance with our form of civil governance and her frequent recusals. Councilmember Moore has behaved differently than Councilmember Chow since May of this year and should be treated differently as a consequence of her actions. At the very least, Councilmember Moore should not be given back all her committee assignments. Significantly more improvements are needed from Councilmember Kitty Moore. What's the compel improvements if all committee assignments are given back? Thank you for all the good work you have done thus far. You are very appreciated.
Thank you, Louise. And next we have Ajian Lee, followed by Lisa Warren, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Ajian.
Oh, yeah, I have this. My name is Eugene Lee. I represent a lot of parents, residents in CUSD. We really care about how Cupertino City, everything. Why? Because Cupertino City is the heart of CUSD school district. Our school district, have a lot of issue, and the Cupertino City has a lot of issue too. People vote you guys be our council member. We don't care you like each other or not. Please remember the campaign is done, is stopped. Please don't do this. It's not fairly to treat it to people. I just really feel heartbroken that, our council member cannot talk to the city staff, have to go through the city manager. Oh, well, this is the good news or, new policy. I really don't understand that. But anyway, there's a lot of things I want to know. What's wrong with asking question? If there's something like do their own research to be better information and not be a rubber stamp recommendation. What's wrong with that? Seeking data via the Public Right Act fundamentally, well, anyway, parents, residents don't care about these things. What's wrong with that? If we vote our representative to be the council, they have the right to speak for us. They have right to do their own job. And, I don't understand what the jury, the grand jury, is. You know, this whole investigation, it seems like a drama. You know, seems like a setup. I don't understand, you know, what kind of research? Just one-sided research, and just interview for 7 to 8 people only. Then, you know, and also, you know, just do this. Please, this is a Silicon Valley. People are bright and high-tech engineer, you know, high educated residents. Stop doing this. Please restore, you know, Kitty and Liang Chao to back to the commission position. For this, you know, when you do the investigation, do you ever think about their Liang Chao's, or Kitty Moore's, people right? Do you guys ever, talk about to have them to hire attorney? And also, the district attorney, all the investigation, is that fair or not?
And next we have Lisa Warren, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you. My intention was not to sound like I'm sticking up for any one particular person or two, but given what has transpired since this discussion started, I feel the need to do some of that. And last time this came up with the first reporting of the consultant, when Councilmember Moore recused herself, she explained why. As I recall, the mayor questioned it. You know, I don't believe it matters why there should be a discussion between the mayor and the city attorney about whether Councilmember Moore needed to recuse herself. She chose to on the information she was given by staff, and chose to do what she felt was necessary to protect her family and herself and her money. And yet after she's off the dais, you drag her around like, why can't you just accept she recused herself because she was told this, and she's tried to give you more reasons, but well, anyway, I don't want to get emotional about it, but if it were any of you, I would be saying the same thing, because it's ridiculous behavior. She gave her reason. And I can also say that, let's see, one-on-one meetings, I don't believe they're always one-on-one. They're meant to be, but I think oftentimes there's someone else there, and maybe that's an issue because of what's been going on and how she's been treated. And more power to you, Councilmember Chow, for attending the meetings. But I believe we've had our city manager, Pamela Wu, since maybe September. And Councilmember Moore was meeting with her, I believe, for one-on-ones up until the drama came in January. And there were reasons for it. So stop bringing it up as something that's horrible, awful. She's doing what she thinks she needs to do for herself. And as she always does, what she thinks she needs to do for her residents. And now I've run out of time, almost. I don't know why there's such a target on her back. Who's afraid of her? You know what? She's doing her job. When she can't do her job the way she feels is right, she asks questions. You should all be doing that. Yeah. So I'm discombobulated, love that word, because
Lisa,
I, again, wasn't intending to say any of that. But really, I said earlier, Lisa, please move on.
And our final speaker in Community Hall is Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Hi, I agree with the preceding speakers, with the exception of Ms. Sadati. It saddens me that people who support Chow and Moore have been vilified. Their accomplishments have been eclipsed by their political opponents. Just want to mention a couple of their accomplishments, and this is just minuscule compared to what they've done. But for instance, Councilmember Chow secured massive funding for the VIA rideshare program, and Moore found hazmat at Valco. This was in public reports that had been ignored by city staff. You know, the reports say that council members should not seek outside information. Through her duty to our city's residents, Moore has single-handedly saved us from a potent human health hazard that would have impacted us for generations to come. Cupertino residents are eternally grateful to Councilmember Moore for doing her own research. Moore was poised to chair the Valley Water Commission, which is pretty impressive because they've got about 18 members. Her leadership would have served our community. Her qualifications and contributions to that body are in your agenda packet for item number 7. And, you know, I just have to say, no wonder Councilmember Moore and Chow, to a less extent, have not gone to one-on-one meetings. Staff is continuing to vilify and investigate them. Stop these investigations. I am deeply, deeply, deeply troubled that the city attorney engaged the services of Ms. Dowby before getting the go-ahead from council. I'd like to understand how that happened. Maybe I've got it wrong, but I think the community, when we look at the data, the community needs to understand this. This is backwards. I'm seeing a double standard where other council members have made defamatory comments without penalty, without reminders, defamatory comments. A question for the city attorney. If politically motivated majority council recommended municipal code violation, would the city attorney represent Ms. Moore? I think the answer is no. Under these circumstances, I wouldn't want to attend a one-on-one with the city attorney or the city manager either. By supporting Moore and Chow, I feel like I am not allowed to support the 3 others, but sometimes I do support the 3. Y'all need to
Thank you, Rhoda.
get
That is
back
your
to
time.
work. Stop infighting.
And now we will move to Zoom. We have 5 hands raised: Tony Guan, Tracy K, San R, Jennifer Sharon, and Sashi Bigor. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can, but there is an echo, so you probably have 2 devices turned on. You might want to turn off the other, one of them.
Yes.
Perfect.
Is it better?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Council, for hearing me. So this is Tony Guan, and I'm a CUSD parent since 2011. And I had the greatest pleasure working with Council Member Liang Chao on quite a few community topics in the last few years. Liang is a great leader in every sense of the word. She's data-driven, meticulous, and she has given so much of her time to so many community services. So even if she doesn't agree with you, she will always be polite and try to calm you down and give you all the reasons that all the logic process she has, how she come to this solution. And you know, she's not only the hero for Chinese communities. So Miliant Makwana, a Dalit activist who just unfortunately passed away this year. He once called Liang his hero for she being willing to champion the voice who are being silenced so ruthlessly. So by the way, do you know what Dalit means? A Dalit means a person who belongs to one of the lowest castes in Indian system. So this censorship was a circus show in the first place. And apparently the people's voice were not heard. You listen to these crying ladies, oh man, I think you can listen to it 100 times without changing your mind. But I think, so just starting from last night, when the petition was circulated, the whole country, the whole USA has known about this circus show. And I'm very interested in learning how this is going to end. So when I was listening to the recommendations, the number one was like so surprising, right? So recommending a council member not to send an email to the city staff, instead relying more on one-on-one talks. What kind of recommendation is that, right? It's not only not efficient, but it's also very easy to violate and to bury those key informations that the Public Record Act would require later. And I think that's why a lot of critical decision-making information was lost in the history of Cupertino city operation. So the recommendation itself is ridiculous by itself. So what kind of recommendation is that? And Katie Moore was ready to chair the Santa Clara Valley Water Commission, where they were in a very...
Thank you. That is your time. Next we have Tracy K, followed by San R, followed by Jennifer Sharon, followed by Sashi Begor. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, City Council and staff. I respectfully ask that you make and pass a motion to return Council members Eddie Moore and Liang Chow to their commission roles as soon as possible. Agenda item number 7 asserts that City Council meetings are dominated by a small majority of residents that do not represent the larger populace. As such, I would like to note that this request is backed by a petition with 715 resident signatures, and it's still growing by the moment. Given how quickly these signatures have been gathered, in the span of hours, not days, restoring Chow and Moore to commission assignments appears to be the will of a substantial portion of the public. While you can maintain the current status quo of only 3 out of 5 council members serving on commissions, the numbers indicate that this may not be a popular decision. We want a city council that can work as a team and resolve disagreements productively. Moreover, we have seen council members Moore and Chow bending over backwards to be polite and courteous to staff and fellow council members. Is the job of a council member to scrutinize their fellow council members or to work together to solve the city's problems? We, the residents, will be extremely grateful and appreciative if you show that you are now ready to resolve your differences and restore previous ways of functional leadership. More specifically, we would like council members Moore and Chow restored to commissions immediately, not next year, and also that the process of assignment be collaborative and thoughtful. For example, we are hearing that Councilmember Moore has extensive experience not only on the VTA, but also with the Water Commission. So let's keep in mind, if you go through the petition, you can actually see comments from people that note the experience of both Moore and Chow. Let's keep in mind the collective experience and knowledge that they have and utilize it to the advantage of this city. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Tracy. Next we have San R, followed by Jennifer Sharon, followed by Sashi Begor. Welcome, San.
Good evening, City Council. I'd like to bring up the topic of diversity of thought and diversity of cultures where residents come from. 67% or more of Cupertino is Asian in population. When you get a diverse mix of people from a variety of different backgrounds, communication is going to be different. So you cannot set one standard on what is professional communication, what is a mode of communication, what does it mean to trust and empower. All of these are one's view of how it ought to be. Here in Silicon Valley, we have a great melting pot of hundreds of different countries and cultures. For those of us that are in the workplace, each company is different, each manager is different, each manager's style is different. Ultimately, the manager of all of you all are the residents that vote in the city council. And every city's population is different and the mix is different. And therefore, the experiences of city staff in Cupertino is inherently going to be a byproduct of the diversity of origin of its residents. You're not going to have the same experience if you were to be in the city of, let's just say, Los Altos or Los Altos Hills or Atherton or Oakland or any other city. Every city is unique and different based on its resident population, and the city council is a mirror image of the residents that have voted you in. So I ask that you have some tolerance for the diversity of experiences and cultures that you all bring in. For all of those that come in from different real daytime jobs outside of political service or civic service, you understand that there is no one culture. If you worked at an HP, that's a totally different culture from today's professionals that may be working in an aggressive company, such as a startup. If you worked in Taiwan or in China, you may have come from a totally different professional background. And so it is important that all of these factors are considered. And I also want to say for the record, I witnessed at the last Holiday Lights party a very cordial relationship between Councilmember Kitty Moore and city manager. They were together for 30, 40 minutes maybe. I witnessed a very respectful conversation, a great amount of camaraderie. I'm sure the city manager remembers that. And so I feel like politics is getting in the middle of city staff and council members. And let us not make a bad situation worse. Let us look ahead. This is not Washington, D.C. We don't need a quagmire here. There are no two political parties.
Thank you. That is your time. And next we have Jennifer Sheeran, followed by Sashi Bigor. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, City Council members and Mayor Waite. Again, I'm Jennifer Sheeran, and I'm here tonight speaking only as myself. I've followed these distressing issues since I witnessed some of them firsthand, followed by the grand jury report and subsequently followed by the confirming special investigator report. I've said on many occasions that when our elected officials violate our city codes and procedures, we residents should expect them to acknowledge their errors and strive to do better for the sake of all of our residents. This is the reason we elected them, to do the best for our city and all its residents, not just the residents who agree with them. Based on the staff report, I see that Councilmember Chow is working towards improvements in her relationships with city staff. The volume of emails and legislating through email has declined. She's also been attending some one-on-one meetings with both the city manager and city attorney. I appreciate that Councilmember Chow is doing so. It is still, this evening, very concerning and surprising, however, that Councilmember Chow does not accept any responsibility for her actions or the documented violations. So that does give me pause. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that Councilmember Moore is making the same level of improvements as Councilmember Chow. Shockingly, she has still refused to meet with either the city manager or city attorney since February. There are still issues and incidents occurring with staff. Councilmember Moore also appears to not be willing to take responsibility for her actions. Reinstating all committee assignments now means there's no impetus for future improvement. This seems premature at this time. I asked that another review happen in 6 months to determine if improvement's continuing. There still seems to be a list of very concerning, outstanding issues that still need improvement for Councilmember Moore. This has nothing to do with different cultures or not liking a fellow council member. It's a matter of respect and for following our municipal codes and regulations. We should all want that. I understand that there are some that don't want to hear about these ongoing issues because of their personal feelings for specific council members. By pretending they aren't occurring, however, it does a disservice to every resident in our city. Thank you for considering my input.
Thank you, Jennifer. And next we have Sashi Bigor. Welcome, Sashi. Sashi, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to sort of say, please move on. Let's accept the recommendations to reinstate Council Members Chow and Moore to their respective committees. We ask a lot of questions. That's exactly what data-driven people want, and that's what a majority of our population is. The majority council, I have a recommendation for you. Maybe you should do your homework and also learn to ask some questions instead of targeting them. Something the city and attorney mentioned as part of the observations, ineffective council meetings. Guess what? For the past 9 months, we've been working mostly on irrelevant issues. Another comment made by the city attorney as part of the presentation, and I'm paraphrasing here, a particular group attends the meeting and sort of effectively manipulates the policy. Case in point, was the civil grand jury report. Perhaps you should take that recommendation seriously. After the presentation, Mayor Way mentioned about the two council members not accepting professional opinions. It might help you, Mayor Way, to actually go and seek your own opinion instead of rubber stamping what the staff presents. I'm not saying you should disagree with the staff, but it's good to have your own opinion. A baseline is a good thing. Please just, and last, before I get to the last thing, please do not think of making up for the budget shortfall by selling t-shirts. That would be clearly a stupid idea. On behalf of over 700 people who have signed the petition, I'm sorry, Council Members Chow and Moore, for what you went through with this crazy grand jury report. So Mayor Way, as Council Member Liang pointed out, we the public don't get enough and clear information. We want you to work on useful things. We want to hear the details. Please reinstate both council members to their respective committee assignments. Stop this drama. Don't waste enough time. You wasted enough time. Don't waste any more. Thank you.
Thank you, Sashi. And our final speaker that had their hand raised in the 9 minutes was Tessa Parrish. Welcome, Tessa. And you'll need to unmute yourself, Tessa.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, great. I hit the button when it was so black. Thank you very much, and good evening, council and mayor and staff. I keep hearing about the one-on-one meeting with the city manager, but I couldn't find anything in writing that says it is required. If there's a reference to it being required on any, I went to other cities and just kind of did a Google search and tried to see if I could find it, and I just couldn't find it. But if there is one that says it's required, then I'm sure that Councilmember Moore would probably be more willing to cooperate and maybe having someone there. Personally, I think a meeting without the public being present, I personally feel like it's, I don't know, makes me kind of nervous. One council member just speaking to the manager and having possibly, speaking about, let's say 3 people talk to that one manager about one topic and they're convincing the manager, and it just kind of feels like the reverse Crown Act, if you would. To me, it just seems that way. Of course, if it's being done and it's common practice, then great. My question is, please give us a reference, something that says it in writing. My next comment is about the professional. The question about whether or not they're accepting their professional advice. And that always worries me because it depends on who you hire to be the professional. For example, during the meetings for Valco, they hired professionals that said they didn't recommend a phase 2. Well, guess what? It turned out that a phase 2 was required and that phase 2 did find contamination. So if they had listened, and well, that council did listen to quote unquote professional advice, but if council member had listened to that, then we wouldn't have had the benefit of finding contamination. So one of the public comments said, I know it doesn't feel comfortable to not have your council members chosen, and kind of made it seem like no, this is all about facts. Facts is all we want. And so if facts is what they're bringing to the table, whether or not they are listening to professionals, I think it's irrelevant. Another point is the commissions. The commissions that they were removed from have nothing to do with the complaints that were spoken against them or were rendered against them. So they were on a commission. They didn't get any complaints from the commissions they were.
Thank you, Tessa. That is your time. And Mayor, that was our final commenter.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. I want to thank all the speakers. So I'm bringing back this back to council for discussion. We have 5 minutes of each. So who would like? Oh, Councilmember Chow, please.
So I'll just finish my statement. The civil grand jury report heavily leaned on undisclosed anonymous interviews, a practice that has significant shortcomings by allowing numerous inaccuracies to be introduced without any cross-examination or corroborative evidence. In my own interview with the civil grand jury, I diligently raised concerns and provided materials via email correspondence. However, it's disheartening to know that my inputs were selectively excluded from their final report. Consequently, it's evident the report lacks the balance and factual representation that is essential for a comprehensive understanding of the situation. The Dobby report, despite its labeled as fact-finding report, lacks any substantial facts or references to support its claims. Instead, the Dobby report contains a compilation of biased, anonymous opinions put forth by Ms. Dobby, devoid of any accompanying transcripts for cross-examination or verification, thus preventing the possibility of a balanced assessment. Expert opinions are valued only if they are supported by solid evidence. One notable relevance from the Dobby report is its inability to unearth any evidence of municipal code violations involving current or former council members. The Santa Clara County Deputy District Attorney, Mr. John Chase of the Public Integrity Unit, agreed there is no evidence of any muni code violation. However, it is regrettable that the report has achieved a different kind of success, the creation of a hostile city government in our city. The consequences of the Dobby report are not limited to council members. They extend to the Cupertino residents, whom we have sworn to serve. The act of stifling questions from council members is fundamentally opposed to the principle of transparency and accountability. Similarly, quashing dissenting voices under the guise of efficiency is a direct assault on the foundations of democracy. It is my strong belief that this report and the associated agenda item run counter to democratic values, due process, and the principles of good governance. More importantly, they do a disservice to the residents of Cupertino, whom we are duly bound to represent. Every voice should be respected and valued. It is concerning that the staff report labels certain voices as unrepresentative, reflecting a troubling pattern in our city of disrespecting Cupertino residents who take the time to attend council meetings. They are merely exercising their rights to hold their government, funded by their hard-earned taxpayer dollars, accountable. With a heavy heart and in full recognition of my responsibility towards Cupertino residents, I must abstain from participating in any deliberation concerning this agenda item, which is a disservice to our community and a discredit to the principles of democracy. As a gesture of protest against the ongoing attempts to undermine our democracy and the misuse of valuable council meeting time to create a hostile environment for Cupertino residents and their elected representatives, and leaving the dais with the hope that we can collectively make genuine efforts towards a more respectful and transparent future for our city and its residents. I encourage my fellow council members who genuinely wish to create a collaborative and respectful working relationship to join me to oppose any more discussion based on the very biased Dobby report. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have 3 council members left on the dais. And comments from Councilmember Fruin or Vice Mayor Chow? Okay, so I'm going to make a very brief comment. I feel like this is deja vu. It happened before, it's happening now. The only reason I would want Councilmember Moore, I ask why she left, because I would want her to stay here. The city attorney's report is very positive. I do believe that both of them have made genuine improvements, and I was ready to move on. And because, as Councilmember Charles said, collectively and collaboratively, I feel that I have nobody to collaborate or collectively do anything. So I feel this is a deja vu to me again, so I am going to stop right here. So let's, if any council members would like to make any comments, Vice Mayor Mohan.
Thank you, Mayor Wei. My comments were, just to reiterate that we are not here to engage in the details or the fact findings of the grand jury report or the city's response to the grand jury report or the Ms. Darby's fact-finding report. We've done all this. The new thing that we discussed today was the Moss Adams Enterprise Risk Assessment report. So I'm not sure there's any purpose in sort of going over all the details of these reports which have already been discussed. I looked at the positive elements that came out of all the discussion, including the city attorney's recommendations. There has been improvement, and that was the whole purpose of our discussions in earlier in the year. We wanted to make sure that there were steps taken to remediate some of the problems that staff had encountered, that several other people had encountered. And so this is the next step. We had said 6 months from now, we will review progress made in the areas that were troubling. The city attorney's report indicates that there were improvements, some substantial, some not so substantial, but improvements nevertheless. And he did point out that there were some areas where there was no improvement or no discernible improvement. And I looked at all that, and I thought that was fairly balanced. Many people pointed out the need to move forward, and I would like to do that. I don't want to keep revisiting this over and over again. But I think this served a useful purpose and will continue to serve a useful purpose, because we know what the range of good conduct should be, and we know what is outside the bounds of good conduct. So at least we are all familiar with this, and we all have an obligation to stay with certain rules and regulations. If we all have to be a collaborative group, many people pointed it out. We all need to work together, and believe me, in spite of all the things that you have heard, we have accomplished a lot in the last 9 months, and I think we should all feel good about that. So having said that, I accept the city attorney's recommendations and his observations that, while there hasn't been total and complete improvement, there has been, relatively positive steps that we as a council and staff and the public have all taken. So I feel hopeful about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mohan. Councilmember Foon.
So I'll echo both of your sentiments in general. I am disappointed that our 2 colleagues decided not to participate in this. It's, I think, something that is necessary. I'm particularly disappointed by the continuing apparent desire on the part of Councilmember Chow to defend her actions rather than accept that there's a real report written by a real professional that found real problems in the city. We've enacted changes in order to try to address that. Those enactments caused better things to happen. That's the crux of what the city attorney's report today is about. I think that it merits providing some kind of acknowledgement that there has been improvement, but I'm also very taken aback at the behavior today. And I think both of those things need to be acknowledged in whatever we choose to do.
So one more comment I like to say is I really feel there was a heavy personal attack on Linda Dobby, and I was not comfortable hearing it. I do believe that Linda is a professional, and she does the best practice to provide a report to us. And I feel really bad about the comment, so I apologize on behalf of a council. And that's why when I say professional advice hasn't really been observed, but that's okay. City Attorney Jensen said, nobody's perfect. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect, so I'm willing to really, recommended by a lot of people, let's move on and really work on the same, same platform. So I do believe that we do need some more training together, maybe some team building together, learn the rules of running meetings, and I think those are the recommendations by City Council and also by Linda. So I am willing to move on, and because with a few conditions that we do training together, because there was an attempt to do training and it was stopped because there were council members who were not unwilling to participate in the training. Didn't make sense to have 3 council members being trained and 2 council members were not there. So I would hope that we could move on, but we will agree to be trained together, have some team building, and really make sure our council is representing of all residents and move on. And I am willing to move on, okay? Even without a petition, I read the report, I was ready to move on anyway. Very disappointed that Councilmember Moore wasn't even, although I hope she's listening, and Councilmember Chow left the board. That's what the deja vu really hit me, okay? And I want to tell you, it was very difficult in May for me to make that decision. But I felt I did not have collective or collaborative council members on the dais, and I just felt the deja vu. But I am willing to move on, but with the condition that we train and work together. We need to have professional trainers to really, put us in the same room, and then we can really have some team building and set up some ground rules so that we can really take care of our city business and represent all our residents well. If we don't have any comments, I would like to entertain a motion, please.
I do have comments, but I can turn them into a motion. Here's what I was going to suggest as a compromise. Given what we've witnessed today and what is in the report and what you would like to achieve with regard to conditioning the return of commissions, is that we would engage in the additional training as a condition of having engaged in that additional training, that when we do the council reorganization in December, which would be the natural point at which we would make new committee assignments anyway, that every single city council member is then considered for committee assignments as normal. In other words, they could be restored to serving on committees.
May I ask City Manager a question? How soon can we arrange a 5-week, all 5 council members be, learn together, train not just the team building, but also the rules of how to run meetings and things like that?
So through the mayor, we had a workshop scheduled tentatively in August to provide governance training and potentially to tap into Rosenberg and also effective use of the meeting. We could, with September being a little heavy because we're all going to a conference in mid-September, we could probably arrange the meeting based on everyone's availability late September, early October. But then again, pending on everyone else's availability as well as the facilitator's ability.
Okay, so what exactly is your motion, Councilmember Foon?
Well, if you'd like to give me some time to write it up, I can do that, but are you in general agreement with the notion of the motion?
Let's roll vote.
Yeah, let me make a small comment.
Sure.
I am in favor of restoring the committee assignments. However, I also wanted to look at the practicality of it. We're in September. Many of these meetings don't happen once a quarter. So I'm not sure there are that many meetings left between now and December. In January, we all get new assignments to committees. So does it make sense, just in practical terms, to wait till January or December when we make these reassignments to committees?
Yeah, I think that's in line with what I was suggesting, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So would you like to take 5 minutes to write it down so we can
Sure.
read it? Okay. All right, so let's take a 5 minutes recess. So Councilmember Froome, could you show us your motion?
All right, I will email it to the city clerk so that she can throw it up.
We must have a really secure server because it hasn't made it through yet.
Should be getting to you any second.
Yep, there it is. Okay. I will share my screen. Okay, you should see it momentarily. There it goes.
Through the mayor, would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. The motion is as follows, that council adopt the staff recommendation with the following changes. 1, that all 5 council members attend additional training on council governance, Rosenberg's Rules of Order, and the topic of effective collaboration between staff and council members and among council members. And 2, that as a condition of successfully completing the actions described in 1 above, that all restoration of council committee assignments be considered as part of the annual appointment of council members to committees incident to the council reorganization set to occur in December 2023.
May I have a second? And can I make I'll second and make a friendly amendment. See if you would like to accept the Councilmember Froome. I would like to restore all their committee assignments immediately, but if the training doesn't happen, that's I don't know how to say it. It's a condition that has to happen. But we don't wait until December. Say if we have our training right away in October, then after the training, we're going to restore all their committees right away.
So are you asking then if the training is successful, that they would be restored at that point, or that they would be restored now and that would be void if they don't attend?
That's my intention. I would like to restore all their commission appointments right now, and then that all 5 of us attend the training. But if they miss it, if Councilmember Chow doesn't make it or Councilmember Moore doesn't make it, then we revert back to this.
Yeah, I would decline that, if only because I think that, 1, it's not particularly practicable. First, because of how soon we would be back at reorganization in December anyway. As the Vice Mayor mentioned, we wind up, with very few of these meetings left between now and the end of the year. The other is that I want to ensure that the condition is achieved first before we actually restore anything.
Okay, so how about this? I didn't give up. Okay, how about this? That number one, that we all attend. Number two, as soon as we attend it, we restored it, whether it's November, October, because if we can arrange it fast, they still have a couple of meetings that they could attend. And so I would like them to have that as soon as possible.
If they successfully attend, I would be happy to accept that amendment.
Okay, so that would be my amendment. Madam City Clerk, did you take it? So I would
I did.
second that with, are you
Can
seconding my amendment? Councilman, yeah.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Are we expecting all the training to happen before December 2023?
Yes.
Yes. So can we say that the council, is this like a, can I just, no, that council adopt the staff recommendation with the following changes, that all 5 council members attend additional training on all the stuff, council governance, Rosenberg's rules of orders, and the topic of effective collaboration between staff and council members and among council and staff and council members and among council members before December 23, and then not say that as a condition of successfully, just say that all restoration of council committee assignments be considered as part of the annual appointment of council members. So we're not sort of making it conditional to anything other than just completing the training.
Yeah, I think that we can do that by striking some of the end language. So I think that you would change point 2 to be that as a condition of successfully completing the actions described in one above, that all council committee assignments will be restored.
Again, we make it sort of conditional, right?
Well, yeah, the only condition is that they go and successfully complete it.
Maybe this successfully lends itself to some ambiguity.
I would construe successfully completing to mean that they attended the entire time and participated.
Okay, I'd hate to have long discussions about what a successful completion is and what is not.
Sure.
Maybe just attendance.
Attendance for the full meeting. Okay. Let me. Can we take another 2 minutes? I'll change the language and we'll maybe run it as a substitute motion.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
There it goes.
Through the mayor, since I made the original motion and it's still on the table, I'd like to offer the vice mayor the opportunity to make, since she doesn't have either a motion or a second, the opportunity to make this as a substitute.
This is the original one, right?
No, this is
Yes.
original. The second one has changed.
Yes, that would be my secondary.
Would
my
you like to make a
substitute
substitute motion?
Yes, I would like to make a substitute motion.
Okay, and I will second that. So
Could,
it's being
either Vice Mayor Mohan or the clerk read the motion for the record?
okay. Yeah, please.
Sure, I'll read it. The motion is that council adopt the staff recommendation with the following changes. 1, that all 5 council members attend additional training on council governance, Rosenberg's rules of orders, and the topic of effective collaboration between staff and council members and among council members. And 2, that as a condition of fully attending the trainings described in 1 above, all council committee assignments will be restored.
And I will second that. Further discussions? If none, let's vote by light, please.
The motion carries with Chow absent, actually Chow recused and Moore absent. I'm sorry, the motion carries with Chow abstaining and Moore absent, recused.
They both show up as absent.
They both show up as absent, but Councilmember Chow read a statement stating the basis for her abstention, and Councilmember Moore read a statement providing the basis for her recusal, and she is absent.
Okay. May we invite the council members back? Because we do have one more item to go through, which is number, and I will ask for council extension or not.
We can start. We have 6 minutes to start the next item. We would need to have a vote to extend the meeting past 11 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. So let's move to number 8, where our Councilmember Chow and Councilmember Moon move back to the dais. Thank you for coming back, and welcome back. We are moving to number 8, which is revision to Cupertino City Council Procedures Manual. The recommendation item is to provide input regarding revisions to Cupertino City Council Procedures Manual. And I think City Attorney Jensen has a report?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm just sharing my screen now. So we're here today for this item to consider updates to the Cupertino City Council Procedures Manual. You'll recall on February 7th, 2023, the City Council adopted a resolution approving the City Council Procedures Manual. The adoption of the Procedures Manual addressed an identified deficiency in the city's governance policies, and the manual includes rules and guidelines for communication among council and staff, meeting management, decorum, and decision-making, among other things. As part of the resolution, the City Council, as part of the motion, the City Council directed the City Attorney to return to Council to consider potential revisions to the manual in 6 months. Moss Adams discussed the manual in its report today. The Enterprise Leadership Assessment notes that the manual is in alignment with best practices and characterizes the adoption of the manual as positive progress towards increasing the effectiveness of City Council meetings. Consistent with this observation, the average length of meetings has decreased slightly from 5.5 hours in calendar year 2022 to 5.2 hours in calendar year 2023. And more significantly, the total number of meetings has been cut almost in half in the period from January through August 2022 versus this year. Total meeting time was reduced by approximately 1/3. Factors contributing to this more effective functioning of the council include the efficient use of the newly adopted informational calendar for items that don't require council action, more effective council deliberations, and an increased focus on council's policymaking responsibilities. The Enterprise Leadership Assessment also observes that interviewed staff noted that the procedure manuals were a welcome improvement. However, there do continue to be challenges in implementing the manual, and it does depend on whether City Council adheres to the practices in the manual consistently and willingly. With that, the staff report does discuss some potential revisions to the manual based on the experience of working with it since it was adopted in February. These are summarized on this slide here. Potential revisions to Section 4 to clarify the distinction between and naming conventions for advisory bodies. This is a recommendation from the Moss Adams report. Revise Section 5.6 to incorporate additional training requirements. Again, this is consistent with the Moss Adams report and could be considered as a separate policy rather than an amendment to the procedures manual. Potential revision to Section 8.2 to revise the rules of order to improve the effective and efficiency of council deliberations. Council has adopted Rosenberg rules of order, but it is free to modify those to increase the efficiency of meetings if it so chooses to help this particular body function more efficiently. Another potential change would be to revise Section 8.3 which would just simply formalize the adopted practice of providing written reports of council activities. That seems to have worked well, and we could make sure that that's clearer in the rules. And finally, potential revisions to Section 8.4 to develop more detailed procedures for shortening and consolidating time, and consider adopting overall time limits for comments by individual speakers. These revisions, as well as others that council may consider, have the potential to support further improvements of efficiency in council meetings and clarity of council deliberations. The city attorney's office seeks direction on potential revisions to this manual today. We'll return to council for approval of any revisions consistent with council direction. With that, I will be available for questions.
Thank you, City Attorney. Thank you, City Attorney Jensen. Questions from the council? Can you keep that on? So the recommendation, thank you. If not, I have a question. General question is, even when we have the council procedures manual passed, if 3 council members decide to change it, we can still change it?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then I didn't know that the rule of, we can also change the rule as we see fit. Even with the Robert's rules that we adopt, we can still put it in.
Yes, council is free to adopt its own rules of procedures. Rosenberg's rules and Robert's rules are the 2 models that are commonly used.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unusual for governing bodies to have modifications to the default rules of procedures, and consistent with the Moss Adams presentation. You would want to adopt something that works for this specific body, which might be different than what works for other bodies.
Understand. Okay, thank you. Other questions from my fellow council members? If not, I'm going to open up public comment.
Yes, Mayor, we have 4 speaker cards for this item for speakers in Community Hall, and I see no hands on Zoom currently. We'll start with Jennifer Griffin, followed by Peggy Griffin, followed by Louise Sedandi. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chris. You're doing the best you can dealing with the circumstances that are evolving tonight. I am very much against anything with 8.4, like trying to shut the public up. This is what Nancy Skinner did in AB 330, where they tried to limit the public asking questions about environmental impacts on building. This is what the public is dealing with. This is what our life has become from the last 5 years of the bills, and I'm not going to be shut up. I will tell you that the Fremont Unified School District was very gracious. The 2 times I was there in the last 2 weeks, I had a full 3 minutes. They listened courteously to my questions. They asked questions. They referred me to the superintendent. They were wonderful. They did not try to tell the public, this is none of your business, we don't want to hear about it. They were acting exactly as an elected board. One of them is assigned, but he has significant amounts of city council experience. I haven't seen that here. I'm waiting to be impressed. Therefore, I sit on my rear end in those uncomfortable chairs for hours on end. Yes, they're uncomfortable, but that's why we're here. And I will tell you right now, if somebody wants to come and sit in the chairs with me, be my guest. But I am not having it. I am not going to feel guilty because someone stays at home playing video games or maybe going out to dinner that they can't come. I'm sorry. I have missed birthday parties. I rue the time. I remember I didn't go to my father-in-law's birthday party and he died 2 years later. There are times when you remember there are family situations, But to me, things are so grave and dim in this state right now that the public is being stressed to the breaking point. And I will tell you, everything that is happening in this state is happening at the federal level, and it's not Mr. Trump. There are forces that are trying to take down the state as well as the federal. So that's why we come here. We're not going to be shut up. And you know, I'm sorry. I'm tired of you guys wasting my time. Thank you.
Next, we have Peggy Griffin, followed by Louise Sadati, followed by Lisa Warren. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening again, council and staff. You have reduced the public's ability to speak through the use of informational calendar, no mention or discussion allowed except during oral communication, the inability for the public to pull consent items, packing the consent calendar with multiple issues the public wants to discuss, making them undiscussable because they can't be pulled, forcing the public to combine all their comments from multiple consent items into one comment period, changing times and days of council meetings, making it harder for working people to attend, and moving regular meetings to another day so they become special meetings with no oral communications. These have significantly reduced overall public participation. You do not need to do more. Instead, I suggest the following changes to the manual. Consolidation of time between speakers, known as seating time. Allow speakers to only speak once, with all seated time being contiguous with their own time. Do not allow speakers to speak 2 different times on a single agenda item. For combining speaker times, remove the requirement for the need for 5 people and allow any number up to a maximum of 5. Always explain the rules for consolidating time at the beginning of a hot topic. Don't pack the agenda with multiple hot topics. Schedule them out, even if it takes multiple meetings. Add detailed training on Rosensberg's rules and the Brown Act for both council and staff. With all these changes I've suggested, I don't think you need to limit total time for an individual or set arbitrary time limits on agenda items. Control the agenda itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Next, we have Louise Sadati, followed by Lisa Warren, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Louise.
Hello. Hi. When there are infractions or a lack of good faith commitment, a glaring omission in the procedures manual is the lack of automatic consequences or enforcement. As noted in the Enterprise Leadership Report, no procedural rule will be entirely successful improving council operations without a good faith commitment by all council members to comply and attempt to achieve their underlying goals. Councilmember Kitty Moore's refusal to meet one-on-one with the city manager is an example of a lack of good faith commitment to comply and achieve the underlying goals of Cupertino towards good governance. We are a council city manager governance. Excuses for previous actions cited by the grand jury and independent investigator do not show good faith commitment to better behavior. The city needs automatic reinforcement and consequences to be written within the procedures manual. Otherwise, there is no consequence to a lack of good faith commitment and refusal to follow the process and procedures for good governance under our city council, city manager form of city government. Or another possibility would be the constant usage of future council meetings to discuss for hours each instance of infraction or lack of good faith in deciding the consequence each time. The council needs to make the enforcement process automatic and clear. Then the consequences of infractions or refusals will be clear to all beforehand and efficient in the running of city and city council business. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Next, we have Lisa Warren, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So I'm just going to make this easy, and if I had Peggy's notes, I'd just read them again. to you because I wholeheartedly believe in everything she said. And I will repeat what I said earlier, that silencing those who are at the top of the city's org chart, residents, and compartmentalized governing, if you think that is the new transparency, I'm at issue with that. We need transparency, we need a voice, and I'm actually really disappointed that it would even be suggested. This came up last time, 6 months ago, and you chose not to do this limit of 10 minutes each, or whatever it is it might turn out to be after deliberation. I just think it's a very wrong thing to do for so many different reasons, and Peggy mentioned many of them. And I think you all know better, so please prove that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And our final speaker in Community Hall is Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
I'd like to echo the comments by Peggy and Lisa. And, well, I guess you can't rerun and listen to what they've said now, but hopefully after this meeting you will, because what they said was profound. Also, it seems that there were some proposed changes to the manual, but I saw the summary, but there wasn't any red lines, and I didn't have time to compare the old with the new. So it'd be really helpful to the public when changes are proposed that we can see exactly what they were. That said, I hope that I've made this suggestion before, I'm going to make it again. And I hope that you can consider doing an anatomy of peace training in addition to the other things that you're talking about. It's a very, very sad day for the residents of Cupertino today. And I hope you make the right decisions on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda. And we have 2 hands raised on Zoom, Jennifer Sharon and San R. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, good evening again, City Council members and Mayor Way. I'm speaking again on behalf of only myself. The new council member procedures put in place earlier this year have made a significant difference, with meetings being run much more efficiently and respecting the time and opinion and work of all participants, and that includes residents and staff. Like all processes, a bit of refinement can be necessary once the major changes are in place. I'd like to suggest one change which would help us move forward towards meetings that are, as City Attorney Jensen has stated, quote, a forum for carrying out the council's function as a decision-making governing body, meaning you guys are not there just to listen to us talk all evening. It's for you to make decisions. This change would be a new procedure that debate is automatically ended after the time allotted is up, unless there is an affirmative vote of the entire council to continue debating for another set period of time. Not only would this take the pressure off the mayor to decide, if a specific council member gets more time, but it allows the entire council to determine if debate should continue instead of only one person. It also keeps the meeting running in an efficient and business-like manner, with residents able to gauge how long each agenda item will take. That means it's much more likely that residents will be able to speak during public comment, because we will know when the agenda item is actually going to happen. Excuse me. I ask that you make this change to end debate automatically and require a vote to continue as a minor procedural change. Thank you for your work on behalf of Cupertino, and good night.
Thank you, Jennifer. And our final speaker is San R. Welcome, San.
Hello, City Council. I would like to ask that you provide input that this change to the procedures manual be tabled and no action be considered. I would like to ask that you please keep in mind that the public is the top of the org chart. You work for the public, city staff work for you, and therefore the unelected officials suggesting changes and being accepted by a council that is on dais with just 3 members, with 2 off the stage, I would actually ask that you consider postponing the rest of the agenda in deference to the citizens of Cupertino that are unrepresented on the dais. The three of you do not represent the 100% view of the residents of Cupertino. And to act in providing input on this topic that takes away public input time is doing a disservice to how democracy is supposed to work. I would also respectfully remind you that efficiency is measured in hours, not minutes. These procedure manual changes look to shave minutes off the time spent on dais, when in fact this whole agenda could have been killed. You would save hours of meeting time if you did not have this agenda. When you overruled the Planning Commission and spent hours discussing LED signage on 280, that was inefficiency. You could have accepted the Planning Commission's recommendation. When we spent hours overruling and coming back to revisit the prior decisions that were made on the LED signage, that was inefficiency because we rushed through a decision that was not thought through enough. When we spent hours bringing in retained external legal third parties on matters that really shouldn't be anything more than education, that is inefficiency. In fact, the legacy of this mayor and this term of the council will probably be that you major in minor things and minor in major things. 20 years from now, who will look back on this council and say, what did you give us? Did he give us some new trails? Did he give us new parks? Did he do any major projects that will stand the test of time 20, 30 years from now? Ask yourselves that. I ask that you please consider efficiency in hours and entire agenda items and avoid these inefficient agenda items and focus on things that truly matter for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Mayor, that was our final speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. I'm going to close the public comment and bring back to the council for deliberation and discussions. So I'm going to start by asking a question. If my memory serves me correctly, I was very reluctant to get to time minutes. This wasn't an invention of this council. I think even Mayor Paul had minutes too, and he always counted minutes, and the only thing he allows is we can give minutes to other council members. Did I remember correctly that he did have a time limit for each council member? Okay, so I hope that I'm not being said that Mayor Wade invented this minute thing. So I just want to make it clear. Actually, I was very reluctant to be the timer. So I'm going to have Councilmember Moore first, and then followed by Councilmember Chow.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Way. One change that we did have was that deliberations could be ended by a majority. Okay, so there were a couple of items that I would like to have some more clarification on within this policy. One is item 5.5 regarding travel. I think it's just a matter that would need some more clarification. I think the answer is within the policy manual, but I'll just provide the example. I was appointed through Cal Cities for the third year in a row to be on their Environmental Quality Policy Committee, which because of the pandemic didn't meet in person. And in the final meeting this year, they met down in Pomona, and I attended that one at my own expense. So I would like to clarify in the language as to these outside committees, because they are not council appointments, to have council make a decision on, or to, as far as I understand, to have a council member removed from. So that's the first one. Item 5.7, that was regarding the manager's budget. That one needs some clarification because of the document that they're referencing. And I've mentioned this in the past, so if somebody would, from staff would look into that. Item 6.6, to me, it's critically important that council members have access to information, and I made a couple of requests this year, and I was denied that information based on staff workload in a decision by the city manager. So the reasons are no longer there. The schedule conflicts are no longer there. So I'd like to understand when the block from getting information ends. And I appreciate members of the public that have told me, if you need information, just ask me. I'll ask the city. And I think that that's one of the hallmarks of when you have poor laws, that are too restrictive, then people start going around them, and that's what I was noticing, is people were trying to help me to get around them, which isn't what the intention is. Item 8.5, it seemed that at the July 18th meeting agenda item on SB 403 that we had a Brown Act violation where members of the public had turned in their speaker cards, and if they were on Zoom, they raised their hands and weren't allowed to speak. And the total amount of time was limited for people to speak, and then the amount of time for each individual was limited, such that you had a number of people who weren't allowed to speak. And I would like to understand if that is a Brown Act violation, and I'd like some clarity regarding the municipal code regarding municipal code 2.08.090C. States that the city council's discretion is to establish time limits for discussion, but in this particular agenda item, which is item 13 from July 18th, the mayor unilaterally made that decision to shorten the time, and then the total time allowed, and then the individual time. So it would seem that it's the spirit of the Brown Act to allow members of the public who are following the rules for public comment that they would be allowed to speak and not have certain people disallowed. So I would like to have that clarified. Also, with regards to, and I just sent an email to the city clerk with regards to any violations, enforcement of the rules. I sent from the city of Los Altos their accountability policy for the Los Altos City Council. In fact, the removal from committee assignments is a resolution done by resolution of censure in Los Altos, and they have other levels of enforcement and punishment, if you will. So they have informal admonition, formal admonition, or a censure public hearing, and then they have their disciplinary action with a formal admonition or resolution of censure. So there's a whole process that you go through. So I mentioned about due process. We need to have a set of rules that would be followed, so that we don't simply have a council majority that says, hey, I want to yank them off their assignments. I'll take whatever was said here and I'll use it to my advantage. Thank you.
Does City Attorney want to answer a question on the Brown Act violation on the limiting time and speaker time?
So the Brown Act permits legislative bodies to limit the amount of time available to each speaker and the total amount of time to comment on any agenda item. So there was no Brown Act violation.
Thank you.
Pardon, through. Okay.
Councilmember Chow?
So, okay. So I have a question on 6.6, council member access to information. The current procedure, I want to have a question about compliance with this. It says the city manager shall ensure such information is communicated by staff in full and with candor to council, and staff will make every effort in response in a timely and professional manner to all requests made by individual council members for information and assistance, provided that in the judgment of city manager, the request is not of a significant magnitude, either in terms of workload or policy. That's understandable. But following that, the menu says the city manager shall place requests that impose a significant workload on staff on the council agenda for review by the full council. I don't think this is being carried out because information requests made by other council members I'm not aware of. I would like us to follow this procedure, put it on the agenda, maybe as information item, that here is the information request and here is the justification that it couldn't be fulfilled due to workload. That information the public should have access to, and the other council members should have access to, following the procedure menu. Thank you. Can city attorney respond to that?
Yeah, I think the intent was to be to give the full council the opportunity to weigh in whether it would make sense to have staff resources directed at research effort. Certainly, I can work with the city manager on how to effectively implement that.
Thank you, because the language "shall" was used that I understand is required. It's not at discretion of anyone to decide if to put on the agenda or not. Thank you. To allow the council to make a decision and the public to provide input if they need that information. Thank you.
Through the mayor, if I may, if I remember correctly, earlier during the year, Councilmember Moore wanted to talk about the renter tax. With council's direction and also discretion, we went ahead and put it on the agenda for council to decide if we want to go ahead. I think that fits into what Councilmember Chow was talking about in terms of gathering information and put it on the agenda for the public to weigh in and also for council to consider. In addition, there were a lot of conversations centered around SB 403 and SB 423 at the time. We went ahead and then put it on the agenda for council to decide if this is a topic of interest for council to weigh in.
Sorry, it's my time, so I'd like to reclaim my time. That's not, that response does not comply with this item. What you mentioned were agenda item requests, that the council decide if we want to schedule time for that agenda item. Here, this item is regarding information request. One example is the request for senior center budget, specifically I think on bingo and some 501c organization that's receiving city funding and fee waivers. And that information, I believe it was rejected, but it should have been put on the agenda for the full council to decide, and for the public to provide input if they want the same information. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the city manager and the mayor obviously control the final agenda, and I mean, in exercising control over the final agenda, I mean, I think they would consider whether that kind of request is something that council should really be considering, or whether that's an illegal interference with operational functions of the city.
Yeah, that's why I was just requesting at least provide that as an information report, so we know this request was made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chow. Do we have more council input? Councilmember Foon.
So just to follow up on the last set of comments, I'd encourage staff to look at a procedure that's in use in San Jose when it comes to requests from individual council members or groups of council members that are going to take a significant amount of time or resources and that might impact the work plan. It goes by the rather unfortunate name of the early consideration response. But it is a very good mechanism for trying to filter this sort of thing so that everyone feels like staff have addressed it, here's a response, maybe we need more clarity, maybe it's just not practicable, or it's going to take some ungodly amount of time and money to accomplish. But then everyone at least gets a response. And to the extent that we need to alter the procedures manual to reflect the decision tree first to get there, and then this procedure, then I think that's probably worthwhile. The other thing I would strongly encourage is to take the comments of Mrs. Sheeran rather seriously with respect to, rules that have some sort of operation of law in order to help the chair to manage time. I think that is always going to be a frustration for anybody who's sitting there. And it would be helpful, I think, if we had rules that were designed around that purpose so that you don't have to engage in an enormous amount of discretion. Things will happen for you. I think that's a wise change. The last thing I really wanted to bring up is, again, taking from the San Jose model, it is a very large city. There are not many procedures that I would consider adopting here from there. But this other one that I do think is very helpful might help all of council when it comes to constructing motions. In the city of San Jose, there is a very useful colleagues memo system. It is designed around you being able to, within either yourself or a Brown Act group, propose a particular motion in advance with a justification following it that can be circulated with the agenda packet or immediately thereafter, even before the actual date of the council meeting. I've found that, at least for that city, it is an extremely productive use of time. It means that everyone has a fairly well crystallized idea of what they're trying to achieve, rather than having to try to construct on the dais some sort of action to take. I think that's a thing that ought to be codified for us that we can utilize. It doesn't mean that it has to happen all the time. It doesn't tend to happen for every single item there, but it does tend to happen on things that are larger in scope, and I think that it's a very useful means for helping to make sure that people's ideas are clear and that the action that's going to be taken is something that everyone understands.
Mayor, I just want to point out that it's 11.
Yes. So we need to decide whether we want to continue for another 15 minutes. I need council, or 20 minutes. We need council to, so recommend it, please.
So moved.
20 or 15?
20.
Okay. Any second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Vice Mayor Mohan. So let's vote by light, please. Councilmember Moore? Okay.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. So you've finished your comment? So I think Councilmember, Vice Mayor Chow, you still have your minutes, and I have 4 minutes. So I'm going to say, City Attorney Jensen, you got some comments from us. Do you think you have enough so you can come back with recommendations?
So I can certainly take into account the comments. I would also appreciate feedback and perhaps a vote on council on the changes that were discussed in the staff report in the presentation.
All right. Councilmember Chow, you have...
question, is there still a question?
I think you use your 5 minutes, so can I have...
I'd like to make a motion, if I could.
Okay. You want to make motion? Okay.
Yeah,
please.
I'd like to motion to table this item for another 6 months to come back, because we are still implementing the current one, and the recommendation from the city attorney, I don't think they are essential, and they are still vague. Let's just do our best. I think the current menu, and we're putting a good effort in that. Let's do our best to implement that and smooth out the wrinkles, and let's not spend more time on this until 6 months later.
Okay, so your motion to keep the
table this for another 6 months. Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Moore, and I second. I would also like to see something along the lines of that Los Altos policy perhaps brought back, so we have some process.
Mayor Way, you'll need to take a vote on this because this is a non-debatable motion. So.
Okay. And may I know the motion is to to table this. Yes.
I
and-
understand the motion is to table this for
And then
6 months.
Councilmember Moore seconded. Do you have a friendly amendment? Because you second with a condition on it.
The attorney has
No, you
all
can-
of our
you can-
comments, which would, through the mayor, which would be, I'm simply reiterating the comment that I made earlier, just to make sure that that would show up at the 6-month time. So it's not necessarily. an
Understood,
amendment.
of
Okay.
course, yeah.
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, so let's vote by light.
Chow's motion passes with Fruin and Wei voting no.
Okay, so it passed, so we're going to table this for 6 months.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, thank you.
So we are adjourned by rule unless council wants to vote to take up the consent calendar item that was pulled from consent.
We do have consent calendar, unless we want to, anybody want a motion for 5 minutes, we to go over the consent calendar number 2?
I mean, I do think we would be able to consider that on the 19th as well if council so chooses.
Councilmember Moore, you're the one who put it. What is your preference?
Thank you. My preference is the 19th.
Consent number 2.
That we would continue it on to the 19th.
Okay, so the meeting is adjourned.